You're listening to We Ain't Dying for This, a Black woman's guide to liberation, and I'm your host, Crystal Johnson. We are a community of Black women demanding our collective liberation through radically soft living. Each week, we share the stories of Black women who have set themselves free from the expectations of others and are living on their own terms.
Okay, we're live. Welcome everyone to another episode of We Ain't Dying for This, a Black woman's guide to liberation. My name is Crystal Johnson. I am your host. I'm also the founder and retreat host at Design Your Soft Life. This week, we're going to be talking to my friend, my sis, Taryn Pascal, who is the founder of the Black Platform. And we're going to be talking about taking up space as liberation. If you are watching right now, drop into the chat where it is that you are listening from. And then obviously, if there is someone, a Black woman that you think might benefit from this conversation, tag her in the comments or share this live with her so she can tune in as we talk about taking up space as liberation. This episode is really special to me. And it's because Taryn and I have been following each other for a while, but we had never actually talked on the phone. And we'll get into her post lately that she's been doing in the last few months. But I saw her post and I was like, "Ooh, I need to get on a call with her so we can have a conversation." And when we had the conversation, it just felt like a perfect fit for us to talk about taking up space, because that has been her focus in this season. So really excited. Welcome to the show, Taryn.
Thank you.
Right. I want to do a quick intro and then we'll jump into the conversation about taking up space. So for those who don't know Taryn Pascal is the founder and CEO of the Black Platform Co., an in-person and online community that provides access and resources to Black women in Olympic lifting. Born out of a need in 2020, for the past 3 years, hundreds of Black women have come together in in-person weightlifting retreats. They are now expanding to strength training accessories and will be hosting their next retreat in 2025. Additionally, Taryn is the founder of the Leadership Platform, where she supports Black women and women of color leaders with a one-of-a-kind philosophy rooted in honoring your values, consistency, and fears. In both areas, the foundation of Taryn's work focuses on Black women creating our own lanes and spaces, defining what taking up space means as a form of our collective and individualized liberation. So in reading that, it is so clear why it is that you are here, Taryn, to have this conversation, especially on a show that is about Black women's liberation. So I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm like, let's go.
Okay, so we typically have a conversation with each other before these lives to kind of just vibe with each other and try to understand how it is that we want to bring these conversations to life. And one of the things that we talked about is basically when we're children, we have an essence. We are carefree. We do what we want to do. Like kids jump off of anything and they are fearless. But then something happens to us and we begin to fear the things around us and we don't feel as free as we may have felt before. And we start to shrink when we go into adulthood, also in jobs and relationships and our friendships. And either we walk away from those spaces or we feel empowered enough to stop shrinking. So, and we choose to take up space in those moments. And when we take up space, sometimes people feel uncomfortable and they actually choose to leave. But ultimately, we do become a better version of ourselves because we have decided to take up space rather than continuing to shrink to make other people comfortable. So, Taryn, can you talk a little bit about why you started posting about taking up space and what that means to you?
Yeah, I mean, we could be here for for a few days. But I will definitely say, my initial reason as to why I started just sharing my notes app is like it's my diary. We were just talking about notebooks and where we write things, and my notes app in my phone is strong. There are a lot of things in there that like I have not shared. I have wanted to share, especially like even I am very active on LinkedIn, but I'm not necessarily as active on um, I'm very active on Instagram, not on LinkedIn. And I recently was laid off from my last organization and just, realized that I have so much that I want to say. And, although organizations don't necessarily, they can't stop you from posting like your real thoughts and everything like that, there was fear. There was like me literally shrinking to not want to share the thoughts that I had written in my notes. And I knew that this is a great opportunity. I'm taking some time to rest. I'm taking some time to really figure out what taking up space means for me. And why not share kind of what that journey has been like um, throughout my entire life. And so I literally had a conversation with Crystal. I was like, I need to start sharing on LinkedIn. And she gave me so much great encouragement. And I have just enjoyed so much of just being able to be myself, being able to share the things that, maybe are not necessarily what you would think of as something that's tied to being in the workplace. But I think, when we think of taking up space, we take up space, like you can take up space anywhere you are, whether that's in your personal life, your professional life, with your family, whatever the case may be. There are different definitions of how you're going to take up space. And so I just want to, talk to Black women in the workplace, outside the workplace, anywhere that I get the chance, about how they can define what taking up space really means to them. Um, to answer the second part of that question of just like what it means to me, um, I really just think that taking up space is something that I did not understand or even know was a thing, especially like growing up. And so I it truly means like everything to me to be able to experiencing what it's like to take up space. I'm 100% like I'm like 200% an introvert, and I love my house. I love my space. I love my people. I literally have a pillow that says, like I'm not. There's too much peopling outside or something like that. Like it's real. I love people, but like I need my space, and so learning how to take up space, sharing that with the world, and just like getting to find more community um, means everything to me. So
Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on, I want to say hello to the folks who have dropped in the chat where it is that they're listening in from. So Seattle, Atlanta, Toronto, Michigan, Puerto Vallarta. And then we had someone say they just had this experience. Companies talk about Black voices, but are scared when we really start to talk. In response to what you said, where it's like, I've written all these thoughts down, but I'm not really saying the thing. And I also remember a point in time where I was very outspoken online. Oh, and from Atlanta. Hey, Nicole. So I remember a point in time where I was very much outspoken. And I feel like when 2021 got here, I just got quiet. And I feel like for the whole year in 2021, I literally disappeared from LinkedIn altogether. And it wasn't as if someone told me that I couldn't post online or say what I wanted to say. I don't know what I was going through in that moment. It could have been things happening around me that subconsciously I felt like I couldn't, but I can't quite put my finger on exactly what was going on in that moment that made me say, ooh, maybe I don't want to say that thing that I might normally say. So yes, definitely it is a journey. And you said something else about like childhood in general. And I want you to share more, but I also want to share something that someone sent me today. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. It's a Instagram post, and it says, "The way I hid my trauma behind good behavior, shyness, and people pleasing as a kid. People thought I was an angel, but really I was terrified to have a personality, so I chose obedience. So much to heal as an adult." I feel attacked.
Like the definition of like my parents always say that I'm like, oh, like we're just so lucky to have you as a daughter because like didn't do like didn't do drugs, didn't drink, didn't do parties, didn't do anything, didn't do. I was like no rule breaking
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever, and it wasn't because like it was because I was literally afraid to take up space.
Yes.
No, and there's nothing wrong with partying. Do all the things you got to do. That's just that was my childhood.
Yeah, but it's so true. And I would have never even thought about the fact that no, we weren't, we are good, obviously, like for our parents, and they felt like we were good. We didn't cause them any trouble. But the reason why we didn't do the things because we were literally afraid to take up space. So, with that being said, tell us a little bit more about how that came to life for you outside of what you shared about just not getting into trouble, not causing any issues for your parents. What other ways did that come to life where you shrunk as a child?
Well, the most prominent way and like the thing that I have really had to investigate, interrogate, heal from, learn from is I have a twin brother. Love you. Love you, bro.
Which it should be, you told me you had a twin. I was like, what? You have a twin?
I the secret is I have a twin brother and I have two older brothers who are also twins. So I'm literally only girl, youngest. That's what like there's so many dynamics and yeah. So I really had a hard time growing up. I grew up in a very predominantly white neighborhood. I am biracial, and so my mom, uh, my mom is white, my dad's black. My mom had no idea what she was doing with my hair, with really a lot of things, and so literally taking up space was terrifying to me because like I was ridiculed, humiliated for my hair, skin color, for eyebrows, like every single feature that I had. And I'm not small, like I physically take up a lot of space. I'm 5'9". You can't miss me. And my brother is also tall. And so I was formerly known as like as I got older, got into high school, was known as his sister, never like Taryn's, and he was never Taryn's brother. And so like that for me was really hard to understand like why that was happening and just like getting a sense of like who I was because we are extremely different. We used to fight over like if the sky was blue or not. He's an extrovert, very talkative, out there. Your girl is not. And so trying to figure out like who I was, knowing that there's literally another copy of me next, like living and breathing next to me every single day, going to classes. We shared classes sometimes. So it was like a very defining moment for me was being able to decide where to go for college because I was like, I just need to figure out who I am. And like I hadn't even really started that journey, but I just knew that like I I needed space to figure out who I was and to learn how to actually be myself and be okay with the fact that like yeah, I'm not going to be the one that's raising my hand answering all of the teacher's questions. I'm not going to be the one that's the life of the party, mostly because I'm not going to be at the party. But I like had to learn that like who I am and who he is, we obviously are individuals. We share a very special bond, and I love that. But I also deserve to take up space in a way that allows me to feel comfortable and love myself and really just show up for me, because for so long like I tried to show up in a way that was like mimicking the way that he would do things, or just trying to be somebody that was not me, because I didn't know who I was, and I was terrified to let people like understand that like I love people, but like I'm not going to be at your party. I still love you.
So did y'all end up going to the same school or no? You went separate, your separate ways?
I went as far away as I could, which I grew up in California, far away. I was potentially going to go to a school in Boston or in Massachusetts. That didn't end up happening. I went to Colorado State and then got homesick because, you know, that's what happens, and ended up finishing my undergrad at San Jose State. So came like full circle, back with family and recognizing that like y'all weren't the problem, but also like that was like a very important year for me to be like I'm gonna be out on my own. I'm a very like independent person, and he's gonna have his college experience, and he went to he went to ASU, so I don't need to tell anybody about what his college experience was like. So
Goodness. It's so interesting how I feel like we have these spurts of taking up space and then times where we're like, ooh, I don't want to take up the space. And that became clear in just the examples that you shared about like you were younger and you didn't want to take up space. You felt like you were in the shadow, basically. And then you said, you know what? I need to get out of here and I need to take up space. And then you got there and you were kind of like, I'll take up a little space, but not too much on that. And then you came home and you stepped into your own to be like, okay, I'm self-aware enough to understand that it's not really the people around me. Like there are things that I need to address within myself. And just even in the example that I shared, where, there are times where I have been very bold, very outspoken, and then other times where I'm just like, well, I don't have much to say. Like I'm thinking a lot, but I'm not really saying a lot. So it is definitely a journey. So I want people that are listening to understand that you may go back and forth, and that's okay. Because I feel like our ability to take up space is very much connected to how safe we feel in a space as well. So give yourself grace and never feel like you have to. You have to do it like it's a requirement. If you feel comfortable doing it, do it. But if at any point you feel uncomfortable, don't. Like it's not a requirement to take up space, but it is a form of liberation, because I feel like we're basically I'm gonna say chained down. I really hate violent language, but that's like all I can think of right now. But chained down to our fear.
and I
So,
feel like to add on to that, it's like we for so long were not given permission to do things. And so like a form or an act of your liberation is getting to define what it is that, first of all, safety is the most important thing out of everything.
mhm,
And in that, like, you get to give yourself the permission, like, nah, I don't want to speak up in today's meeting because I don't really trust them people. Or I am gonna rest because like that's what I know that I need, and people are gonna have to deal with it. Like,
yeah.
you get to give yourself permission because you get to define what taking up space is, and you have that control.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So speaking of that, like meetings and being at work and being an adult, how would you say shrinking showed up for you? And then how does taking up space show up for you today?
Wow, that's a very good question. Um, I would say taking up space, let's do shrinking first. Shrinking still happens for me on a daily basis, and I'm just like that's as transparent as I can be, because I think a lot of the times when we think about taking up space, I think that like people are like, "Oh, like you can just take up space and it'll be easy." It's not like every day I have to work through my own inner thoughts, my own
Mm-hmm.
self-doubt, my own self-trust of like, you deserve to be here. You're doing the right things. I have a sticky note that says stop limiting yourself, because it's usually me who's doing that. And so shrinking typically in this moment in the past few months, especially with, you know, a new change in um, workplace environment, stuff like that, like is really just understanding that like I'm exactly where I need to be. And some days it feels like I'm not. Some days I want to just literally not show up, not post on LinkedIn, not post on Instagram, not, have a new introductory conversation with somebody, because that for me is like, that's my kryptonite. I get so nervous meeting new people. I get so nervous meeting groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have to continuously think about and figure out ways in which I put in the effort to not shrink myself, but I also have to give myself the grace of like, today's just not the day. Like, it just is what it is. And maybe that's your own way of telling me that like you didn't really feel safe. And I've definitely had that experience of like, I thought that I wanted to meet with this person. Turns out like I really didn't, and I don't regret it now. Like, I don't feel like I made the wrong decision. In that moment, it felt like I was shrinking, and it didn't, excuse me, necessarily feel good.
Yeah.
But we're here. And so that's like what I'm when I think of like where I think of shrinking in this moment. And then taking up space is really, I was very burnt out um, from my last role. I was in the DEI space, and on top of that, got a master's degree.
Wait,
uh,
hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. Okay. So I'm a hold you right there. I'm gonna hold you right there because I sent you this assessment yesterday. Okay, this saboteurs assessment, and one of your saboteurs was restless. And even though, like, I understood, I'm like, well, you aren't, at a job every day, so of course you feel restless. But no, you've been restless the whole time. You like, I need to do all these things. Okay, continue. I just the dots just connected for me, and I'm like, you did what?
Crystal. Yes, yeah, I can't sit still, clearly. Even though I think that I'm sitting still and I'm not, but that's a conversation for another day. And I mean, as I was saying, like, I was working a full-time job, getting a master's degree. Clearly, your girl has some issues with resting.
Mhm.
And so I was just like super burnt out. And I knew I was burnt out after I graduated, but I just don't think I ever fully got to a point where like I could actually heal and recover. And that for me, really, like as I found out that I was laid off, I took a deep breath of like relief.
Yeah.
Because in that very moment, I felt like I was getting saved in a way, because I was so burnt out. I was also sick for like a month, almost 2 months, from like Christmas until the beginning of February.
Yeah.
So like truly, I was sick from not resting, not being able to not rest either, because like gotta pay the bills. And so being able to figure out and have the time and like intentionally rest, like my partner, I truly don't know what I would do without him. Literally, like I told him, I was like, I just need like a week to just literally do nothing, rest, relax, all of that. And he was like, a week? That's it? And I was like, what do you mean? I have to do more than that?
Because you're restless. You're restless.
Oh, and so like I really was able to figure out and like also like come back to myself.
Yes.
Like be able to be sitting here today and have energy and have joy, like all of these things that like were taken away from me, not necessarily like somebody did it on purpose or like anything like that, but like I lost myself.
Yeah.
And being able to not only get myself back, but become the better version of myself that like I want to be, because I felt like I was just like, again, limiting myself, limiting um limiting what I have the capability of doing and everything like that. Like that really for me right now is taking up space, is like we're working, doing things that are bringing uh me joy, and taking up space in that way is like so extremely just like gratifying, because I feel like I haven't enjoyed doing anything really. Like I'm also obviously the founder of the Black Platform, and I also hosted a retreat last summer, was burnt out from that. And so like even joy in Olympic lifting and working out and like fitness and building community, all of these things that like are needed and things that like I need personally, I just didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And now having the space, having the time, having the ability, the privilege, all of these things is just like a huge form of me being able to take up space in a way that I've only ever like imagined being able to do. So
Oh goodness. I love that so much for you. And I feel like when you're in the midst of it, just to what you were saying, when you're in the middle of the thing, especially because of capitalism, and we got to live and we got to pay bills, we are so wrapped up in all the things that we got to do. And then we give ourselves extra things to do because we like, I really don't want to do this other thing, but this thing brings me a little bit of joy. And then you start doing that thing, and then that burns you out even more. And you start to resent doing the extra stuff. It's just like a cycle. So then you get caught up in it and you're burnt out, and you have to take the moment to take a step back, to be still, which is why I love the idea of your retreat, our retreat. So you had a retreat last year. Your next one is going to be in 2025. I have a retreat that's coming up in August in Cartagena called the Soulful Experience Cartagena. It's August 11th through the 15th. And one of the most important things about that experience is that we are together, an intimate group of Black women coming together. First of all, you have the ability to just disarm yourself in a way that you've never been able to disarm yourself before. And then just even having that level of stillness allows you to have those aha moments that you're talking about right now, where you're like, wait a minute, I have been running on this hamster wheel and didn't even realize that I was going through all these other things. Like, I didn't even know what it felt like to actually rest. And then to the point of the assessment that someone asked for in the chat, if you send me a DM and just say assessment, I will send you the link to the assessment. But that assessment is actually part of the retreat as well. So you have the ability to take that assessment, so then you know what your saboteurs are. And then we spend the next 6 weeks together after the retreat silencing those voices, because your saboteurs are basically behaviors that you created as a child to keep you safe. And now as an adult, they're really not working for you anymore. They're actually wreaking havoc on your life. And once you understand like who those saboteurs are, like what are those voices, what are the things that your saboteurs are telling you, then you're able to quiet those voices. But you got to figure out who they are first, and then understand what is it that you need to do to quiet them.
And I'm just mentally preparing for anyone who takes this assessment. You will, maybe it's just me. You might feel a little attacked. I just might feel a little pull.
You definitely feel attacked because yeah, the questions get at you, and you're like, wait a minute, what?
I was like, Crystal, what is this?
Yeah, it's literally in your head. And for me, after going through that assessment and going through the 7-week program before I became a coach, a positive intelligence coach, it was so transformational for me. Like, Crystal in October 2023 is not Crystal today. Like, the things that used to bother me don't bother me in the same way anymore, because now I'm able to address or actually connect it to the thing that it's really about. Because normally when you're reacting to something, it's not so much about what's happening to you right now. It's about the trauma that's been triggered by the thing that's happening right now. And that is what's been able to transform just my thinking and my way of being. So it's been amazing. So I want to end with this exercise. And I told you about this exercise during our vibe session, but I didn't give you the questions because I wanted you to be able to do it live. So let me read mine first. So I went to a retreat last year. I'm a retreat host who actually goes to other people's retreats as well, because community is vital. So the person who led this retreat led us through this exercise called the higher self bio. Remember, in the beginning of the conversation, we talked about your essence. And as a child, you were free, like you were carefree, you were fearless. And there was something that clicked that then made you not feel fearless. It made you afraid, and also made you not feel as free as you felt as a child. So what we should all be trying to do is like run back to that essence that we had as a child, or your higher self, which is also something that you mentioned when you were talking today too. And I was like, look at Taryn, higher self. So this is called the higher self bio. So I'm going to read mine. And then of course, anyone who's listening, take out a pen and paper, because I'm going to take you through it so then you can do it too. So actually, you know what? I'm not going to read mine because I don't want to sway people either way. So it's a few sentences, and let's go. So the first sentence is, I am a person who is committed to. And if anyone just started listening, I'll repeat that again. The first sentence of the higher self bio, and you're going to fill in the blank. I am a person who is committed to. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. The second sentence is, I am a living example of. And I'll repeat that again. I am a living example of.
That one was really hard.
The next one is, on my best days, I am. Actually, wait a minute. Yes, on my best days, I am. Now I'll repeat that again for anyone who's listening, who's also doing this activity with us. On my best days, I am. Okay. Now, this next one, you're going to think of a childhood activity that made you happy. You don't have to think too hard about it, but just like the first thing that pops into your mind. You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, write down 3 positive characteristics that describe you doing that thing. So right now, Taryn is writing down a childhood activity that made her happy, like first thing that comes to mind. And then she's also writing down 3 positive characteristics that describe her doing that thing as a child.
I don't really know if 2 of these, maybe not characteristics, but we'll work with it.
No need to be perfect. All right. So the last sentence is, at my core, I am, and you're going to use those 3 characteristics. And I'll repeat for anyone doing this with us. Last sentence, at my core, I am, and then you're going to use those 3 characteristics that you just listed about how you felt, or some 3 positive characteristics that would describe you doing that thing that made you happy as a child.
All right.
You ready?
Yes.
So I want to hear your higher self bio.
Okay. So I am a person who is committed to community care and holding space. I am a living example of my purpose. On my best days, I am joyful, laughing, and cooking. And at my core, I am carefree, flying high, and taking up space. And just to provide some context, jumping on the trampoline was the first thing that came to my head because I would be out there all by myself. Others, but I can play all by myself. And just, yeah, that brought back so many memories of just like I taught myself how to cartwheel, how to backflip, front flip, all those things, and just being in the sun, feeling the sun on your face. Oh, so much.
Good. I really love this. And I think you touched on something else too. I think we often feel like we need other people to validate us, like external validation. But you just showed yourself that you're able to be by yourself, teach yourself things, be happy. You have everything inside of you to make yourself happy. We really don't, I mean, obviously we want other people around because community is everything. But we also have everything that we need to make ourselves happy within us. So that's beautiful. How do you feel after reading that or after like writing it? Do you feel like it's a good example of who your higher self is?
I think so. I'm like cheesing right now because like it's exactly the person that like that was the person that like I wish that I could be when I was, at that turning point of shrinking.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, why can't I just, be happy jumping on the trampoline, like be happy being outside, taking up space, not being afraid to be like, everybody move to the ends. I'm about to take up some space with this back foot.
I love that. I love that. And I can like the glow there. I know that we are over time. Do you want to hear mine or I can just read it to you privately if you want?
I mean, I'm here for yours. I think we should end on yours.
Okay. So I wrote this last year around my birthday. And my higher self bio is I am a person who is committed to freedom and liberation. I am a living example of breaking generational cycles. On my best days, I am giggling, rested, and unbothered. And at my core, I am curious, carefree, and happy. And my childhood activity is catching lightning bugs. So that was like the very first thing that came to mind is like growing up in the country and just being outside at night with no shoes on. Terrible idea, y'all. But outside with my mama's cup that I wasn't supposed to have, catching lightning bugs with my hand on the top of the canister. So yeah, that really makes me happy, like reading that again. And I think what's also interesting is that I came into this year saying that this year would be my year of liberation. And reading that back, it's like I was foreshadowing then that this year would be my year of liberation through creating my higher self bio without even knowing like these are the things that I feel and that I am as my higher self. So I love it. I love it. I hope other people did this activity as well and it felt as liberating and freeing. And I hope that you consider that like as you think about how you take up space or when there's moments where you feel like you want to shrink, that's something that could potentially come to mind and like help you to take up space. But I've really enjoyed this conversation, and just want to thank everyone who's been listening in. As I mentioned before, if you want access to the assessment, just message me assessment, and I'll send the link over to you. And then if you're someone who is interested in learning more about the August retreat, message me sisterhood, or just say, "Girl, send me the details," and I will do that. So then you can learn more about what we'll be up to this August. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nicole.
And everyone else. But we out and we will be back next week. And the topic will be protecting my peace as liberation. And if any of you have read her book, then you know who actually might be here next week talking about protecting my peace as liberation. So thank you, Macy. All right, y'all. We'll see you next week.